Greetings, Admirals, and welcome back to UA Dreadnoughts. Somehow it's Thursday already, but yeah, it's not been a good week as far as braining goes. In fact, I would say it's been quite a bad week as far as braining goes. And yeah, I kind of realised, oh, it's Thursday, should probably try recording something. And I actually did! I did record something earlier today. It was some of this. And then discovered that there was a really nasty hum throughout the entire recording that had been picked up by my microphone, and I didn't hear it while I was recording, so I can only presume it was a vibration from, I think, one of the case fans on my PC being picked up through the microphone stand. And I think there is one of the case fans that it's got a dying bearing or something like that, so it's sometimes producing excessive vibration. And it was bad enough that although I had a go at editing together the hour plus of footage that I had recorded, if it was bad enough for me that I felt that it would be unpleasant to listen to that for any length of time, then it certainly would have been bad for anyone trying to watch it on YouTube. So yeah, I am, instead of going to start the campaign afresh though, I will basically jump in, because I started the campaign, showed off the ships, and had done one battle, and that all took up like 75 minutes or something like that. So we've missed some that I'll have to go back over and do, and hopefully I remember it all, but there's at least going to be a definite fight as I go back into the world. Now, I've chosen Germany. It's 1900s Germany, and I'm basically going to race towards the Dreadnought hull as soon as I can. But we can't look at any of that right now because we're locked into a fight. And we actually have to defend Helgoland from quite a heavy force of enemy ships. The last time round, I had a bunch of battleships. The very first battle was a bunch of battleships, and I think I had a couple of light cruisers and a couple of destroyers and torpedo boats as well. And the enemies had a bunch of heavy cruisers, light cruisers, and TDs slash DDs, and or TBs rather. And I managed to get quite a handy victory because I had a bunch of battleships available. This time round, however, I don't know how this is going to go. We might lose a battleship here. I can't even show the disposition of forces because it was all kind of greyed out in the corner. So yeah. Apparently that was Russian, but French built. Well, you would never know looking at it. Man, those French Tumblehome designs are something else. There are some pretty nice looking Tumblehome hulls in the French, not tech tree, I don't know what to call it, but yeah, if you play as the French, which I did that test campaign you saw with the heavy cruisers and Austria-Hungary, and then I played a 1890s campaign just to mess around with the Tumblehome hulls. And yeah, you can't quite make a Charles Martel, or I can't even remember what the others are called, but yeah, they've kind of abstracted it a bit. So it is definitely a Tumblehome design, but it doesn't look quite like any of the real life ones. Anyway, right, so I mean, this is also somewhat Tumblehome looking, but not really. It's just that midsection. This is all auto-generated. What I did was I auto-generated my own fleet, and I randomized the enemy AI just to see what would happen, and I think that has influenced the disposition of the enemy fleets. But we won't be able to get to see that properly until the world map. So what this gave me in terms of the rather large number of battleships is 13-inch front gun, 10-inch rear gun, and then some 4 and 3-inch secondaries. Now, I've built a refit version of this, which is a bit more sane. It's got a uniform 11-inch battery, but yeah, it's going to take a while to go through and replace all of the ships. Right, so we're going to have to basically just be on the defensive here. But my ships aren't particularly fast, so that's going to limit how much I can do. Let's have you... Oh, no, we want you still on... Well, maybe it's only 2 ships I'm controlling. I can control 2 ships. That shouldn't be an issue. Maybe. I did spend a fair few minutes of that first battle bemoaning, because it was a fairly big battle in terms of ships per side. But yeah, bemoaning the... oh dear, we can't avoid that, can we? Yeah, I have tried to get you to turn, but... Yeah. Yeah, the jankiness of AI control at the moment, and one of the things I was bemoaning was that when you use these AI roles, that there's no way of saying how aggressive or passive you want your ships to act while they're in those roles, so that would certainly be something they could change. Now, there's only a 1.5 kilometre torpedo range, but given how slow our ships are, yeah, the enemy destroyers and torpedo boats can easily close that. Oh dear, that's had all engines knocked out. That's now a sitting duck. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That definitely is unfortunate, but it's not really a lot I can do apart from just try and keep these ships at bay as much as possible. I think we'll probably lose this heavy cruiser. Already lost one. In fact, in that first battle I lost everything except the battleships, which were fine. The torpedo boats, destroyers, and the, what was it, single heavy cruiser and single light cruiser basically took all of the focus of the AI, and so my yeah, my battleships were not quite untouched, but they really didn't take a lot of damage at all. Right, yes, I wanted everything to be on that. It has switched everything there itself. You can't really tell. I mean, you can get the different lines, like if I set my secondaries there, I know that's then the secondaries, but it's still, like if the AI does it itself, you don't know, is that the main batteries or is that the... Yeah. You might be able to look here and see, like, well, these are aimed at the torpedo boats, and these are just destroyers, but if they're both sort of aimed at, you know, something of the same class, and it just says DD across the board, it's like, well, which destroyers? Hasn't sunk yet, but man, that got pretty badly mauled by those torpedoes. Right, well, this isn't exactly a major engagement. I think this is just going to be try and sink 1 or 2 of these and maybe get out. I mean, bear in mind they have a battleship back there somewhere as well. Why are you going for the further away one? I don't know. They're all smoked up, so we've got a pretty terrible chance of actually hitting anything. Also, these main guns have barely any high explosive. It produced not a bad battleship, but it's also not a great battleship. I mean, it's still pretty slow. The belt armor is okay-ish. But I'll show you after this the refit version, because the refit version is a lot more sane. Okay, well, yeah, the torpedo boats all just withdrew. And that's still afloat somehow, although dead in the water, so I think we'll just take the option to end the battle. And oh, okay, that battleship was really damaged going into that, apparently. Yeah, we damaged one of their torpedo boats. That was, I mean, yeah, technically a victory, but not really. I would call that a draw, to be honest. Anyway, right, now we can actually have a look at the map, and I can show you that, yeah, look at this. 29 battleships, 23 battleships, and they have, what, 21 between them? They still outnumber us overall in terms of their fleet numbers, but for some reason the AI decided that it was going to go much heavier on the smaller ships, and, you know, the opposite was true when it was doing the pre-built fleets for myself and Austria-Hungary, so that's a bit wacky. So let me quickly show you the actual ship designs, and I haven't refit any of the others yet. I did design, I mean, this was all in the recording and it all had that awful nasty hum in the background. So yeah, I've designed, I've used the refit system for the Battleship, and then I've designed a slightly, actually no, that's slightly more expensive, but a faster cruiser than the protected, the semi-armoured cruiser hull that it gave me, which has got 7-inch guns. I've gone with a skinnier, faster ship with 6-inch guns. Not that many of them, because it's still only single turrets for light guns. But let's first off have a, well, we'll just do a quick overview of the ships generally, I suppose. So we have the Augsburg class, which are pretty slow for a light cruiser. Single 7-inch turret each, bunch of secondaries. They're not bad overall. The game's actually done alright in terms of giving them like decent protection, although cramped crew quarters is not great. The one I built as an alternative, and I don't think I'm going to build any more of these. I mean, that turret smokestack profile funnel, there we go, that's the word I was looking for, is distinctly peculiar. But yeah, going forwards I'll build these instead. It's only 4 6-inch guns, but I'm hoping at some point we'll get the tech to build twin turrets, so that would be nice. They are a little more expensive but much faster, and more importantly they can spot further than they can be spotted, so they can act as scouts to some extent. The heavy cruisers also have 7-inch guns. They're much more expensive, but they've only got 1 extra barrel per 7-inch turret. So yeah, a whole lot more secondaries though. A lot of these are 5-inch secondaries, so generally more capable, but again, not the fastest in the world. Although for a heavy cruiser, that's nearly 22 knots that it's given me. But there are probably some things here I would have done differently, like it's compound instead of crop armour, and I'd probably drop the quarters down and up the bulkhead. So I might do a refit version of that as well, or I may just do a whole new class. Not quite decided yet. The Battleship, the Prinz Regent Luitpold, is distinctly a weird hodgepodge. And not a fantastic design overall. I mean, not terrible, but yeah, I've done some significant tweaking to that. So it's now the refit version is uniform 11-inch battery. It's actually faster. It's got better armor. I think it had compound armor. I've gone to Krupp 1, and I've up armored it a bit as well. So yeah, generally speaking, this should be a lot more capable, but it's going to be a lot of refitting work to bring all my existing battleships up to that standard. And then we've also got the oddity of my destroyers actually having less displacement than my torpedo boats. My torpedo boats and destroyers are the wrong way round, really. These have, I think, as many torpedoes but more guns. The only real advantage the destroyers have is that they can smoke and the torpedo boats cannot. So I'll probably do an off-screen new design of those. Anyway, so that is a much quicker jog through all of that than I did the first time round. And yeah, I do have a couple of the Gazelle class ships being built. We've got some refitting going on already as well, because that's one of the things I wanted to do when I chose the auto-generated fleet, was to show off the refit feature. It's definitely got its limitations. I think there is definitely a lot more refinement that can be done, but it's a nice step forward, as opposed to previously when you would have had to just scrap a ship and like build a new one from scratch. So yeah, so they're fairly extensive refits, so it is taking a while. But what I can do, given that I just have so many battleships. It even started off, like, we've actually got some battleships under construction as well. Because you can start off with these auto-gen fleets of ships. You can start off with ships under construction as part of that. So we can actually get another pair under refit. And that's fine. Let's just quickly check my finances as well. Because I want to go for those Dreadnought hulls ASAP. I have maxed out my tech budget, which is really expensive. I could probably up my crew training a bit more, actually. Let's put that up to like 90%. And we haven't lost any transports yet, but we'll maybe just bump that up to 0.1 or 0.0. Yeah, 0.1. And that still leaves me with a pretty decent positive balance per month. But yeah, tech is the thing I want to drop kind of last of all, because I'm really hoping that we can get sort of ahead of the game and get those modern battleship hulls, or the Dreadnought battleship hulls. Anyway, what have we got? Convoy and a bunch of bunch of battleships. We have battleships to spare. This is kind of in stark contrast to really both the Austria-Hungary campaign that you saw a kind of snapshot of, and the subsequent French 1890 campaign I did, where I was just playing around with Tumblehome battleships, because Tumblehome battleships are fun. Not terribly practical, but certainly fun. And I really did have a lot of battleships. That was still far more concentrated on the smaller classes of ships. But yeah, this is kind of the opposite. Right, now we've got gosh, we have a lot of following groups. Those light cruisers, okay, those all of our... We have like one destroyer and screen. We'll actually put these on screen as well and make sure they are set to torp avoidance. One thing I've learned, I haven't seen any of their battleships up close yet, but unusually none of the British auto-generated I haven't seen our French or Italian ships yet, but the British ones, the British cruisers, heavy and light, don't have any torpedoes. And it's been my experience so far that the game really likes to give them torps. Heck, one of the reasons why I actually went with the 1900 campaign, apart from going for that kind of dreadnought race, is that the torpedoes are still pretty short-ranged. Whereas you get to the 1930, 1940 campaign and it really does seem to become torpedo soup. I've been watching one or two other creators that are exclusively or almost exclusively covering UA Dreadnoughts, and yeah, some of them are really struggling with how prevalent the torpedo spam is. Right, anyway, that is going to be a destroyer. I mean, they still have destroyers and torpedo boats for me to worry about in terms of torpedoes, but at least I don't with their cruisers. You can tell, I mean, it still doesn't do terribly sane things sometimes. Like, that's not a terribly... Why would you stick a barbette on the front of a destroyer like that? That is utterly unnecessary, but sometimes the AI design does do things like that. That's something that I'm sure will get refined over time. At the moment, it's... just a bit quirky sometimes, but it usually does things in a somewhat sane fashion. Although, having said that, there was I think it would have been during that French test campaign I was doing, I think it was an Austro-Hungarian ship, or was it a German one? No, it would have been an Austro-Hungarian battleship where it was literally just two wing-mounted 12-inch guns. I mean, they were twin turrets, so it still had 4 guns overall, but yeah, it was a bit of a wacky configuration. And a lot of the time, it only had a single 12-inch turret available to actually fire at anything. But weirdly enough, they still managed to be annoyingly effective even so. Didn't make any sense that they should be, but somehow they were. Right, this destroyer is just absolutely going all in. Let's see if we can switch that focus to that cruiser. We've only got, I think, 1 kilometre on these ones rather than 1.5 kilometres. But the enemy destroyers definitely have 1.5 kilometres on their torpedo boats and destroyers. So, yeah. Should be able to easily win this fight. Although I don't doubt that we will lose that lone mad destroyer. I really wish you could tell them to be, you know, more or less aggressive within whichever role you've given them. Because, yeah, they go a bit mad. I mean... yeah, like screen, they just go on the attack if there's a nearby threat. Follow, they just kind of dumbly follow behind. I'm not sure, like, scout... I don't know how scout affects their behaviour. So if I... oh, I was looking at the wrong one there. So if I set these cruisers to scout, for example, do they engage less? I don't really know. I'm not 100% certain how that works. Right, we are quite spread out, although a lot of that is seeing the transports in the background. I don't think we've got any other ships tangled up in there. No, good. Sometimes that happens when you have these groups of transport ships you're trying to protect. You end up with your own ships getting stuck in the middle, and the pathfinding just can't handle it. It definitely helps if you turn off the avoid ships thing under that circumstance, but yeah, sometimes even so, you just end up with your ships playing bumper cars with its allies. One of the issues I'm having overall with this startup fleet is that they're pretty slow generally. The British cruisers are certainly faster than mine. I haven't seen any of their battleships up close to know what speed they can do, but their light cruisers can get up to 27 knots. I mean, they don't have a particularly heavy armament, and they have sacrificed torpedoes in order to make up that speed. I don't think they're going to have particularly good armour either, and even their heavy cruisers can manage 23.6. So that basically leaves my battleships in the dust. It completely means that they can dip in and out at will, essentially. And I don't have anything that can really catch up to them, because my light cruisers are not even quite 20 knots, and my heavy cruisers are at least over 20 knots. But yeah, they don't have the most impressive firepower. So yeah, my heavy cruisers are the fastest large ships I have, and then I think the torpedo boats and destroyers can hit something like 30 knots, which is, you know, that's decent, but yeah, there we go, 32 knots on the destroyer, but they've not proved to be I mean, I've not had much successful use with these. I think I'm going to have to refit them so they have better torpedoes, or even just come up with an entirely new design. Although I think we might have to also do a refit, just because I have a whole bunch of existing ones that we're going to need to do something with. Right, let's see what's a bit closer. That Donegal, let's go for that. That's a rather sneaky looking. Should we just set that back on to follow? That's fine. They're getting a bit close, so we'll have them. Why have you slowed down so much? I wonder if that's the ship avoidance collision thing. Maybe? We're still going very slow in this turn, even though I've turned that off. Which is fine, because you're making yourself a perfect target for being torpedoed by this onrushing destroyer. So, well done, the captain of the Falker. That was some primo tactics right there. We're probably going to lose this cruiser now. Because I don't think these things have... they do actually have anti-flood 1, but they've only got standard bulkheads. So, yeah. Right, well, we managed to torpedo that in return. If the Falker lives, let's stick it in that retreating group. Which, like, it may flood out, it may not. That is a yellow compartment rather than red, so they can keep pumping that out. But with 2 engines out of commission, I don't know if it's going to get out of the firing line. That destroyer at least is going to go down. Okay, well, we sunk a destroyer. Woo! Good job, everybody. We've won. I'd like to at least sink a cruiser or 2. And if we can, like, not lose this cruiser, that would be nice. They're really struggling to pump out that compartment. In theory, they should be able to, but we might have this be effectively completely knocked out in that... yeah, it's going to have 1 engine left at best. Come on, that's a yellow compartment. I know you can pump that out. I know it's possible. Right, don't get too distracted. Bad things happen when you get too distracted. We know this. Oh, we have actually... Oh, hello. I was going to say, we've got some little shells splashing in from the other side. Where did you come from, you cheeky so-and-so? Well, let's just stick all our armament on that destroyer. That was, yeah, that was, like I say, you don't pay attention and bad things happen. Like, destroyers sneak up on you, and you'd think that your gunners would... You can't really set behaviour for, you know, if destroyer gets too close, everyone panic. I'm clicking on my ship, there we go. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Oh well! That was super nasty. Good grief, that absolutely wrecked the Wilhelm II. I mean, the fact that I have a bunch of these battleships is no consolation. It's going to be expensive if I lose them. Right, we have that one left over here. This one's got longer range torpedoes. I think 1.5 is the best you can do at the moment. Ah, we lost that destroyer, that cruiser rather, never mind. Wait, what happened to... Oh, yeah, this is the thing I've noticed. And it happened during that first attempt at recording as well, that sometimes ships just switch groups randomly for no reason that I can tell. It tends to happen when they're damaged, so I guess that's something to do with it, but yeah, it's pretty weird. Also, would you all just kill this destroyer already, please, before it lays any more eggs? But yeah, I didn't tell it to do that, it just randomly decided that ship was going to be in that group now, because reasons. Yeah. Actually, we don't need to do any kind of tight turns there. Come on, kill it with fire. It's not helping that as we're starting off, even though I've put my crew training level pretty high, it takes a while for your crews to get trained. So, yeah. At the moment, we're all kind of on... I mean, at least we're on an equal playing field, but yeah. Oh, something bad happened to that cruiser. Oh, and that sunk as well. Okay. They don't tend to be that good at avoiding if they are just in a lone, like a single ship. They don't seem to get the same benefit of being able to press that button. I mean, even if you press that button, sometimes you cannot avoid the torpedoes. Right, have they got any destroyers left, or have we, like, sunk them all? Can't tell. Can't remember how many they started with. Anyway, at this point, I mean, aside from their destroyers, we are gravy. We haven't lost any transports. We just need to beat up on some ships at this point. And we should be able to accumulate a fair number of victory points. Which I think, and this is a fairly recent supposition / revelation, I think it is based on the cost of enemy ships. I thought it was to do with classes, but having had the thought of, oh yeah, maybe it's based on ship cost, that would make a lot of sense. I still wish you could do something, and this is purely going back to like Hearts of Iron 4, and there's a lot of thoughts I've had in relation to this game that are essentially things that are in Hearts of Iron 4 with the man the guns naval systems, and that yeah, if you could do things like designate a flagship of the fleet, like an overall flagship of the fleet, because it kind of automatically makes a flagship in a battle kind of like a command ship, that it switches around based on, you know, how much damage the ships have taken. It sort of decides, okay, this is now the lead ship. Well, at least as far as I can tell. I might be wrong about that, but yeah, if you had an overall flagship of the fleet, and you know, if you have a battle with your flagship in it, that generates extra victory points or something, but it's worse than if it gets sunk, kind of thing. And yeah, there's likewise some stuff around the way refitting works in Hearts of Iron, which I really wish this game did the same. There's the fact that you have to build a ship, the unrefitted version, and then do the refit. You can't just build the refit version. So at that point you might as well just design an entire new ship, even if you're quite perfectly happy with the capabilities of a refit version. Right, we are getting a bit tangled up. This cruiser's not doing so well. Taking a fair bit of damage. I swear there used to be a penalty for having mixed main gun calibers, but I don't think there is anymore. I think they must have removed that at some point and maybe done something else, like monkeyed around with the numbers otherwise. I mean, this was while it was you know, the pre-Steam version, before 1.0. But I swear that used to be a thing. There used to be an active penalty for having mixed main battery calibers. But maybe given the inclusion of like an 1890 start date, they thought that would be a bit unfair, because you were already starting off with generally very poor accuracy and very short range engagements. I mean, yeah, even at very close range, these are not particularly accurate. I mean, neither of these is a particularly accurate gun anyway. The most accurate battleship caliber gun at the moment I have are 12-inch guns, but I decided to go with that uniform refitted 11-inch battery for mainly weight reasons. And the 11 inches are not that bad. They're, I think, a little more accurate than the 10-inch guns. You can see there the difference between the 10-inch and the 13-inch. Well, at close range, actually, the 10 inches are much better, but at longer range, you start to get a little bit better accuracy, but it's really marginal on the 13 inches. But longer ranges are not particularly long in, well, you've seen how this fight's been working out. Very, very short range engagements indeed. I was actually watching, who was it? Fly Daily. Like War Thunder is starting to get battleships now, and they're tending to be, you know, Dreadnought era stuff. So he was playing the like, you know, the original kind of 1910 10s it would have been, version of the Issei. Was it that early? I'm sure it was. And there's also, I think they've got like Dreadnought in there. I think they've got Arizona, like South Carolina. So some pretty early classes of ships overall. I don't think there's anything later than like 1920 in terms of capital ships. But the thing that really struck me is that the size of the maps they play on is quite absurdly short-ranged, especially considering the nature of War Thunder and the way that they have modelled ships in the game. They're not just a big bag of hit points. It's like how they do their ground and air battles. You know, there are individual components and there are numbers of crew, and if your crew gets knocked out, then obviously that's an issue and you can't do anything, and etc, etc. So there's all the different components inside the ship. So it's a somewhat more realistic way of like actually modelling the ships, but at the same time they're all fighting at really, really close ranges. I think the furthest kind of ranged shot was that was possible on the map, that he was on something like, this is slightly guesstimating, but like 15, maybe 16 kilometres. And most of the engagements were taking place at sub 10 kilometres. I think that's one thing Warships does better, is just has bigger maps. Why are you going so... Let's try turning that off. Will that help things? You've slowed to a crawl and everything's bunching up. But yeah, it was just kind of almost like having these big heavyweight ships be in what was comparatively a really small area. Yeah, unsurprisingly, the battleships were really, really dominating, because there just wasn't room for the smaller ships to get away and like maneuver and you know, like really do the kinds of things that I'd be used to doing in World of Warships, and trying to disengage. And I know also part of it is just the way the vision system works in War Thunder is very different as well. You can't just like straight up vanish in the same way that you can in World of Warships. But yeah, even so, it's you know, for battleship caliber guns, that's not got to be much fun if you're facing that and you're in a destroyer or a cruiser, and you know there's battleships at like 10 kilometers or less firing away at you with 14-inch guns. I don't think it's anything bigger than 14-inch at the moment, but that's, you know, it's still a fairly big caliber if you're in a Königsberg or whatever else. So yeah, it was interesting to watch, but it feels incredibly unbalanced, just you know, from a spectator's point of view. So I don't know. Well, it would be interesting to see what War Thunder Naval was like with bigger ships on bigger maps. I think that would make a bigger difference than well, I don't even know how else you would balance it. I mean, Fly kept talking about aircraft carriers, but obviously aircraft are well implemented, but I don't know how would a player-controlled aircraft carrier work. Oh, hello, you've cooked off in War Thunder. I don't even know. Maybe just as a like a platform that you take your player-controlled plane off, but then that would be pretty much the same as what we have in Warships, I suppose, just with obviously different mechanics of flying. But yeah, I don't know that would really help, because the maps would still be really small. Oh well, who knows, maybe War Thunder will end up getting submarines as well, and everyone will get to enjoy that. Anyway, I don't know why I got started on the topic of that, except that you know, War Thunder Naval's kind of sort of semi-related in that it's naval stuff. Yeah, if the grind weren't so horrific, I might actually go back and play some War Thunder for that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've stuck with World Warships when like partly it's obviously just, you know, be enjoying the game. I wouldn't keep playing the game if it was horrendously unfun, but the grind was comparatively kind. But yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt that the grind is comparatively kind. Although that's something that wargaming has been, yeah, they've been making moves to do things about that. And fortunately, it's not been direct economy nerfs, but yeah, they have been looking at different ways in order to change the shape of the economy. So stuff like what they did with taking flags away from achievements to force people to buy more of them, and it's also a major thrust of the upcoming, still preliminary, but the changes they announced last week with the decoupling of economy bonuses from the camouflages, so they'll be able to separate the bonuses that camouflages give you versus the look of the camouflages, so you can much more customize what you want your ship to look like in terms of its camo, without being beholden to, well, you know, I want this set of bonuses, but I have to endure this horrific looking camo to get it. I'm looking at you, Frosty Fir Tree. So yeah, from a purely cosmetic point of view it's nice, but they are taking it as an opportunity to do some economy rebalancing as well, which is kind of yeah, it's going to be a complicated thing. It's not going to be particularly clear cut, I don't think, because they did provide like an example spreadsheet, and Little White Mouse looked at it and poked at it and went, well, that's, you know, that's wrong. They've done something wrong with these formulas here, because they're not scaling in a way that makes any sense. So yeah, we'll put that together. I hadn't even managed to get it correct, apparently. It does look like it's going to have some overall, like some things will be beneficial but other things won't be. At the moment they're proposing taking away the dispersion debuff, what is it, like 2% or whatever that you get from camouflages at the moment. They're just talking about removing that entirely, but at the same time baking in the little bit of camouflage bonus, you know, spotting bonus. So definitely a mixed bag. Anyway, I'm completely off the topic of this game, but we're just kind of watching my battleships beat up on cruisers at the moment. We are taking some damage though, but we're going to walk away with more victory points, I suspect. Oof, that's just hanging on. Okay, I didn't realise how badly off that ship was. Let me see the... oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, there's a couple of the models I've noticed this. You can just about see it. The kind of the armor's slightly kind of... there we go, it's kind of a better angle, but it's sort of peeled away, and yeah, that is something that's on very few models, but I think that's something they'll work towards, where you have these kind of sections that take damage actually looking different, more than just having that kind of black sooty look. Wow, they are just hanging on. Can you take... was this one that took torpedoes or something? Yeah, this is the one that took the 3 torpedoes. Kind of surprised they're still afloat. Anyway, these ones are taking a fair bit of fire as well, but this will be comparatively light. I think once we've taken out these heavy cruisers, I think if we get the option of ending it, we'll just take it, because trying to chase down their 27 knot light cruisers is, yeah, kind of pointless. We won't bother with that. Well, considering the array of firepower that we have levelled at them, this is really dragging out. Really dragging out. I would have hoped that we could have at least sunk another one by now, but yeah. I mean, they're not even... like, their secondaries are firing HE, but they've actually run out of HE for their 7 and 6 inch guns. Like the 6 inch are like casemate guns. But even AP shells, if they don't... like, if they get blocked by armour, I think they can still cause fires. But yeah, we haven't really had any big hits or pens, except we might have on this Niobe now. We've finally had a decent enough pen to cause some flooding and fire, which is quite nice. I actually, I had the thought while I was watching this of, and I imagine this would be something that would come fairly late in the game's cycle, but yeah, the ships at the moment are all basically unpainted, and I know proper camouflage wasn't really a thing until World War One. Although it might have been experimented with a little before then, but even then, you know, in that pre-Dreadnought era, you still sometimes had some quite distinctive paint schemes, and you would have different paint in peacetime than wartime kind of thing. So it'd be nice if you could choose a coat of paint for your ships, so that they're not just like kind of steel grey. Did we... oh, that rear turret actually got knocked out. I wonder how. I mean, the armour is not 11.6. That was either an unlucky pen or maybe a roof pen. I have no idea. Anyway, but it would just be nice if you could paint your ships. It would let you add that little personal touch. Right, the Australia is currently zooming away, so I think once we've sunk the Niobe, I'll tell my ships to turn around, pull back, and we'll get this one over with, because it's dragging on a little bit now. It shouldn't be too much longer. I mean, this is just about flooded out. Yeah, there she goes. Right, end battle. And a fairly decisive win. We lost our light cruisers. We're able to pull that destroyer back. And the lead battleship there did take a fair bit of damage. I mean, that was over 50% structural damage just from small caliber guns. But yeah, overall, fairly healthy win points wise. So we'll take it. Right, well, I think I will wrap things up. This was actually rather shorter than last time, but yeah, I don't think I'll... I don't think I'll sit and design torpedo boats and destroyers while I'm recording, because if nothing else, it is super fiddly to use the ship designer sometimes now. They've made it less optimized somehow. I mean, I know they added some stuff to it, but it was apparently enough to make it sometimes just kind of freeze up altogether, which is really annoying, and you can't move the camera around and bits of the interface get stuck. So yeah, I'm really hoping that's the thing that gets improved with the next patch. And there are some interesting things coming with the next patch, which I don't know if it's going to be that long, but we'll see. Probably the most interesting thing is that there'll now be a dynamic element to the Citadel calculations. So where you place your turrets will affect how much Citadel armouring you need. And so having an all-forward turret arrangement like Nelson or Dunkirk or Richelieu will actually have some weight-saving benefits, because at the moment it doesn't make any difference to how much Citadel armour you need, but in 106 apparently it will. Anyway, that is it for this second attempt at recording the first part of this campaign, and we're already off to a fairly strong lead. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. We'll see if this capital focus of my faction versus the lighter ship focus of the allied faction, the tripartite faction, whatever you want to call it. We'll see if that pays off in the long run. So if you have enjoyed this, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.